everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I created this Adidas Samba 3D model in Blender. So last December, my girlfriend surprised me with this limited editions Adidas Samba from Korea as a birthday gift. I absolutely fell in love with them. The blue and maroon color is something I couldn't find anywhere here in the US, which make them even more special. I then decided to reproduce it by creating a 3D model in Blender, and maybe I will even 3D print a mini version of it to use it as a refrigerator magnet. Let me walk you through my modeling process. First, I started with a simple cube as my base mesh. This is always my go-to approach for any modeling process. Then I added the reference images of the Adidas Samba shoe that I found from online, from the top and side angles to make sure I got the proportions correct. Then I began extruding faces and adding more edge loops with the key Ctrl+R to match the basic shape of the sneakers. For the shoe profile, I carefully adjusted the vertices of the model. So notice how I created just a single vertex for the heel counter part of the sneakers. Now for the midsole of my shoe model, first I selected all the bottom faces of my shoe model and used the key Alt+E to extrude faces along the normal. Then I selected the edges and pressed the key Shift+E to give them a strong edge crease. This will maintain the sharp edges when I apply the subdivisions modifier later. Then I turn on the on-cage setting in the subdivisions modifier so I could continue editing those vertices precisely while seeing the smooth result. Then I spent some time adjusting the midsole profile to get that classic Adidas Samba sneaker look. The interior was a little bit tricky, but it is worth getting it right. So here is how I approach it. First, I selected the 6 faces at the top of my sneaker and apply a strong edge crease using the key Shift+E with a factor of 1 to all the outer edges. Then I use the insect tool by pressing the key I. So one important note here is to make sure to deselect the boundary options here. Next, I extruded the faces downwards to create the opening where my foot goes in. For the collar area, I reversed the edge crease to get the soft padded look. Now for the tongue, I first selected the faces where the tongue would be and duplicated them. After that, I removed the original faces for the tongue area from the main shoe body. Then I selected the edges around the tongue opening, moved them inward slightly, and then extruded them to create the depth. So at this point, as you can see, the basic shape of the Adidas Samba shoe was taking form. Now that I had my basic shoe shape, I needed to create those overlays that are attached to the shoe body. First, I started with the heel counter overlay by selecting faces at the heel area of the sneakers, referencing to my original shoe photos. Then I duplicated those selected faces and separated them into their own object. For the overlay to perfectly attach to the shoe surface, I added a shrink wrap modifier and set the shoe body as the target. A really useful trick I discovered was to temporarily apply a level 4 subdivisions modifier to the shoe body. This will create a much smoother surface for the overlay to attach to. Then I make sure to turn off the subdivisions modifier on the overlay itself, making it much easier to adjust the shape of the heel counter to exactly match what I wanted. Next, I added the solidify modifiers to give the overlay its thickness. The order of the modifiers was very important here. So solidify modifier first, then the subdivisions modifier. After applying these modifiers, I noticed some clipping issue where part of the overlay were intersecting with the shoe body. So the easiest fix for this issue was to add more edge loops by pressing Ctrl+R key, then carefully adjusting the vertices in these problems areas. For any vertices that ended up inside the shoe body, I simply selected them and moved them outwards until they sat properly on the surface. Using exactly this same technique, I created all the other overlays, which are the toe cap at the front, the tongue overlay, and of course those Adidas 3 stripes. To summarize, each overlay follows the same workflow, which are select faces, duplicated them, separate, add the shrink wrap modifier to the surface, so add the solidify modifier for the thickness, and finally adjust those vertices to eliminate any intersections. Now it was time to tackle one of the challenging parts of any shoe modeling, which is creating the shoelace. There's a traditional method where you create a curve, assign it to an object, and give it a flat shape to make a shoelace. But honestly, that approach is pretty tedious and time-consuming. So I found a much more efficient and aesthetically pleasing solution, which was utilizing the lace generator from the Blender market. Yes, it costs around $12, but after trying it out, I can definitely say it was worth every penny for the time it saved me, and the quality of the result is amazing. So after purchasing and importing the lace assets into Blender, the setup process was really straightforward and intuitive. The lace generator gave precise control over parameters like lace thickness, pattern, tension, twisting, and etc. I did run into one small issue, which is even after adjusting and trying all the parameters, I still had some clipping issue where the shoelace intersected with the shoe tongue. So it's not a serious problem though. I solved these problems by converting the lace object to a mesh. Then I switched to the sculpt mode and used the grab brush to carefully pull the problematic sections away from the tongue, eliminating the clipping issues. One of the pretty characteristics of my Adidas Samba sneakers is the white stitching that runs around the overlays, attaching them to the main shoe body. To create these stitches in a way that look realistic without taking much of my time, I invested in the geometric notes procedural stitches from the Blender market. It was around $14, but considering the time it saved me and the quality of the results, I consider it a worthwhile investment for my shoe modeling. So first, I started with the toe cap overlay. I apply all the existing modifiers in the correct order, which is mirror, shrink wrap, solidify, and subdivisions modifier with only level 2 subdivisions. Then I needed to select the specific edges where I wanted the stitches to appear. A great time-saving technique here is I selected one edge, then held Ctrl key while clicking another edge further along the path. Blender will automatically select all the edges between these two edges. After selecting the complete edge loop where I wanted stitches, I created a new vertex group and assigned these selected edges to it. Next, I copy the stitch modifiers from the procedural stitches geometric notes package and added it to my overlay object. In the modifier settings, I assign the vertex group name to target only the edges I had selected. For my Samba model, I chose the double stitches options, which create that characteristic parallel stitch patterns seen on my sneakers. Then I spent some time fine-tuning the parameters like stitch size, spacings, and offset until they match my Samba shoe. So once I was happy with how the stitches look on the toe cap, I repeated this same process for all other overlays, which are the heel counter, the 3 Adidas stripes, and anywhere else stitching appear on my Samba sneakers. Now came the most challenging parts of the project, which is adding the Adidas logo to the curved heel counter. This took me quite a bit of experimentations to get it right, so I will share the method that finally worked for me. So first, I imported an Adidas original logo in the SVG format into Blender. The import brought in multiple curved objects, so I selected them all and combined them using Ctrl+J key. Then I positioned the logo carefully at the right locations and scale it appropriately. Next, I converted the curve into mesh object using the Convert To options. To clean up the internal geometry, I applied a decimate modifier set to planar options and then applied it. This will simplify the mesh while preserving the logo's outline shape. The logo consists of several distinct parts, so I separated each part individually for better topology control. So first, I selected each piece, pressed P and chose the selections to separate them. For each separate piece, I used a quad remeshers to retopolate. This is where careful attention was needed. So sometimes the retopology result wasn't ideal. So to fix any issues with the retopology, I make sure each side had the same number of vertices at matching heights. In some cases, I manually added more vertices between existing ones to get clean, flowing edge loop that maintain the logo shape. So once I was satisfied with the retopology of each individual part, I reselected all the pieces and joined them back together with the key Ctrl+J. Now I added a string wrap modifier to attach the logo to the curved surface of the heel counter. I set the wrap method to project and selected the heel counter as the target object. Then I added a solidify modifier to give the logo an appropriate thickness. After applying both modifiers, the result was a perfectly Adidas logo that followed the curve of the heel counter exactly. Next, I wanted to enhance the realism of my Samba model by adding appropriate textures to different parts of the shoe. For the heel counter overlay, I decided to add some wrinkled leather texture to match the authentic look of my reference shoes. So I downloaded the high quality leather textures from Polyhaven website. To apply these textures, I selected the heel counters and used the Node Wrangles add-on, which is the Add Principal setup features, which will automatically create a complete material node setup for me. At first, the textures looked off, either too large, too small, or distorted across the surface of the overlay. To fix this, I switched to the UV editing workspace, selected the heel counter, and pressed U to bring up the unwrapping options. Then I chose the Smart UV project to generate a clean, optimized UV layout. In the UV editor, I increased the scale of the unwrap element to make the leather texture appear at a more realistic size and proportions. Once it is properly scaled, the wrinkled leather textures added the subtle surface detail that makes a huge difference in the final render. I then repeated this same process for the other overlays, selecting appropriate textures for each part. So for some of the fabric-based overlays like the outsole tip and certain side panels, I apply a more textured, slightly fuzzy fabric materials to represent the canvas elements of the Adidas Samba shoe. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more content like this.